Oh, today I'll be doing a re-ranking. This time it'll be for the band The Cult. So yeah, I have ranked this band before, but the last time I ranked their albums, we didn't have Under the Midnight Sun yet. So I figured it'd be time to eventually get around to re-ranking their albums. But yeah, this is also a band I'll be seeing live in a couple days. Definitely looking forward to that. It'll be my first time seeing The Cult live. But yeah, really pumped for that. Glad I finally got the opportunity to see them live. But yeah, we'll be going from worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my personal ranking. You don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know your ranking in the comment section below. But yeah, there are a few albums in my ranking that definitely could move around at any time, but this is my current ranking as of now. And at the bottom, I'm going to have to go with Choice of Weapon. This album just doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Not a bad album, not terrible, but if I were to be honest, this is probably the album that I return to the least out of all of their albums. But again, not bad. I mean, I do like the song Lucifer, but the replay value just isn't quite there for me with this album, and there just isn't a whole lot here within the track list that really stands out to me, and not a whole lot here that I just find myself returning to at the end of the day. But again, not bad, but for me, one of their weakest. And next in my ranking, we have their latest album, Under the Midnight Sun. I'm not sure how fans feel about this album nowadays, but for me, it's been for me one of their weakest ever since the album came out. Just like with Choice of Weapon, I don't think this album is bad, but I hate to use the B word, but I find this album to be a tad boring. I'm not sure if I'm alone in that or not. I don't know, but the album does have its moments though. I do like Mirror and Give Me Mercy. Those are probably my favorites on the album, but kind of like with Choice of Weapon, this is an album that I just do not reach for very much. Again, I think the album could have benefited from some more rockin' songs, a bit more energy going on, because for me, there's too many slower moments. And don't get me wrong, I do like the more slower or more melodic side, but for me, I wish there was some more rockin' moments on the album, personally for me. But at the end of the day, not bad, but for me, one of their weakest. But next we're moving to the album that I believe I had at the bottom the last time I ranked their albums, but that album is Born Into This. Definitely glad I gave a re-listen to some of the songs on here. There's some fairly rockin' songs on here, like Born Into This and Dirty Little Rock Star, which are some of the bigger songs on the album, and also some of my favorites on the album too. But I think the album does have a few deep cuts that I do think are kind of underrated. I Assassin being one of those songs for me. I do really like that song, especially the guitar work from Billy. Illuminated is also another solid song on here. But yeah, while I wouldn't rank it as one of their best, I still think this album is overall fairly solid. And now we're moving to the album that, for me, easily their best when it comes to their modern work, or at least what they've been doing since Born Into This, and that album is Hidden City. Pretty good album, I'd say. I think the singles on the album are actually pretty good too, like Hinterland and Dark Energy. Dark Energy was, of course, the first single, and I was really into that song when it came out. But yeah, Hinterland's also pretty good. I do like the song Goat, especially the guitar work from Billy. And vocally, I think Ian sounds solid on the album too, such as in songs like No Love Lost and Goat. Deeply Ordered Chaos is another song that I like off the album. You do get some solid deep cuts on here, like No Love Lost and Avalanche of Light. The album closes on a more melodic note with Sound and Fury, which I think is a decent song. Not one of my favorites on here, but I do like the song though. But yeah, actually, pretty good album. And of course, if you haven't heard the album, definitely check it out. Now we get to the part, the more tougher part within my ranking. These next three albums, honestly, can kind of switch around or move around, however you want to put it. These next three can honestly move around for me, but depending on the day. But next in my ranking, we have the Self-Titled album. And maybe one of their more divisive albums within their discography, potentially, maybe. I mean, this album doesn't really sound like really any of their other albums. They got a little bit more experimental on this album. If I remember correctly, in an interview that I watched, the lyrics are a bit more personal on this album. And yeah, I like this album. I think it's actually fairly solid. They tried to do something a little bit different with this album, and for me, it worked. This album might not be for every fan, but I do kind of dig it though. I think the album opens up with one of the better songs on the album. That song being "Gone." Again, fairly different, but I do like it though. I do like the singles on this album: "Coming Down," "Drug Tongue," and "Star." Star being probably my favorite of the singles, and also probably a top three song on the album for me personally. But you also have the song "Real Girl," which for me might be one of their most underrated songs. I really like that song a lot. Definitely one of the big highlights for me on the album. Black Sun is cool too. I think the album has some pretty solid deep cuts too, like "Universal You." I like the guitar work in that song. It's kind of dirty and rough, but I like it though. "Joy" is another deep cut that I do enjoy. "Be Free" is cool too. But yeah, there's maybe two or three skippable songs on here, but there isn't really any songs on here that I would consider straight up bad by any means. But yeah, this is definitely more closer to the middle of their discography for me when it comes to ranking their albums, but still solid album, I'd say. And if you weren't into it the first time, I'd say give it another chance. Definitely a fairly unique album, their discography, but again, I do like it though. But next, we're moving to their debut album, "Dreamtime." Pretty good debut album, I'd say. I think that especially has some pretty good deep cuts, like "83rd Dream" and "Rider in the Snow," which might be one of their most underrated songs in my opinion. I really like that song. "A Flower in the Desert's also pretty good. I do like the title track. You do have the big song on here, "Spirit Walker," which is definitely one of my favorites on here. "Go West" is also pretty good. But yeah, fairly solid debut. I wouldn't consider it their best, but still pretty good debut album, I'd say. Fairly solid start to their discography. But next, we're moving to an album that I feel is pretty underrated and probably has some of their heaviest work, especially in the guitar department. And that album is "Beyond Good and Evil," which came out back in the early 2000s, 2001, and there are some songs on this album that really go pretty hard, especially songs like "Rise" and "American Gothic." I mean, in the guitar department, Billy is really going off in some of these songs, especially in songs like "Rise" and "Ashes and Ghosts" and "American Gothic." But I think you also get some of the lesser known songs in here I think are also pretty good, like "Take the Power" and "Speed of Light." I think is kind of an underrated gem. I really like that song. Definitely one of the big highlights on the album for me personally. And "War of the Process" for me, maybe one of their best album openers. I don't know. I personally really dig that song. Maybe not talked about as much as some of their other album openers, but I do like that song overall. But yeah, with this album, yeah, there are some songs that are stronger than others, or more memorable, or more stronger than others, but still, not a bad song on here. But yeah, an album that I find underrated, and if you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. Or if you haven't listened to it in a while, definitely give it another listen. Pretty rockin' album that for me deserves a bit more attention. But now we're moving to their first album into the 90s, that album being "Ceremony." Their only album produced by Richie Zito, if I pronounced the last name right. And yeah, if I remember correctly, around this time there was some tension within the band, and there were some creative differences, stuff like that, when I was looking into some of their history and all that. But the title track for me probably might be a top three album opener for me from the band. I really like the title track a lot. I do think you get some pretty good singles on here with "Heart of Soul" and "Wild Hearted Son." I mean, if you were a fan of Sonic Temple, then you should enjoy the song "Wild Hearted Son," one of the more anthemic songs on the album. "Earth Mofo" is also pretty good, one of the lesser talked about songs on here, but I really like that song. And then you have track number 4, "White," which, I mean, that might be a top 20 cult song for me, maybe top 15. One of the longer songs on the album, but I really like that song a lot, especially Ian's vocals in that song. I mean, kind of an underrated gem on the album for me. I really like that one. And Full Tilt is one of the more rocking songs on here. I also like that song too. Sweet Salvation's also pretty good. But yeah, all around, another really good album from the Cult. And next we're moving to Electric, produced by Rick Rubin, who has gone to work with other solid bands too, like Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's also worked with the Beastie Boys. But yeah, pretty good album. Definitely one of their best in my opinion. You can definitely notice some AC/DC isms within the sound of the album. But yeah, some of my favorites on here: Wildflower, Little Devil, of course, Love Removal Machine, which is one of the big songs on here. But you get some also some really good deep cuts in this album with Peace Dog, which, when it comes to deep cuts from the band, probably one of my favorites from them. King Contrary Man is also really good. Memphis Hip Shake is probably one of my favorite album closers from the band. I really like that song too, but all around, pretty good album from the Cult. Definitely one of their best, again. And now these top two honestly can go back and forth. There might be days where Love is at the top, or there might be other days where Sonic Temple is at the top for me, but next in my ranking is Love, their sophomore album, and yeah, this album is definitely great. Definitely a classic. I mean, so many great songs on here. Some of my favorites on here: Nirvana, Brother Wolf, Sister Moon, which is maybe a top 10 Cult song for me, Rain, and of course you do have their big song, She Sells Sanctuary, which is still a solid song all these years later. Hollow Man, for me, one of the best deep cuts on the album. Revolution's also pretty good. One of the slower cuts on the album, but I do like that song though. Black Angel has never been one of my favorites on the album, but I do like that song though. But yeah, not a single bad song on here, but yeah, definitely one of the band's best. And of course, at the top, we have Sonic Temple, produced by Bob Rock. And yeah, this album is definitely really great. For me, does hold up. You do have probably maybe my favorite song from the Cult, and that song being Edie. I mean, one of their big anthems, and I still really like that song a lot. You do have Sun King, which is definitely easily one of their best album openers. But you also have some pretty good deep cuts on the album too, like Automatic Blues, which, I mean, especially riff-wise, I really like what Billy's doing in that song. I mean, definitely a really hard rocking song. Same with New York City. That song is definitely a banger. Sweet Soul Sister, one of the bigger songs on the album, also pretty good. And then, of course, you also have the anthemic Firewoman, which is definitely one of the band's best. But yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of the songs on here. Great singles, great deep cuts, all around, easily one of the band's best. But yeah, that's the album that I have at the top of their discography. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Do you agree or disagree with some of my placements? Let me know some of your favorite or least favorite songs or albums from this band, and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and a like, subscribe. Have a nice day, and take care.